Moldova faces Russian surrender fears as Ukraine warns of World War III in a shocking turn of events. The world is teetering on the edge of a global crisis as tensions between major powers intensify, threatening to reshape the geopolitical landscape. At the heart of this storm is Moldova, a small Eastern European nation caught in a dangerous tug-of-war between Russia and the West. Reports emerging from international media suggest that Moldova's leadership is under immense pressure, with some speculating that the country could face collapse or even surrender to Russian influence if it aligns too closely with Ukraine's embattled President Volodymyr Zelensky. This dire warning comes amid a cascade of global developments, from escalating conflicts in the Middle East to economic upheavals and covert breaches of international sanctions, painting a picture of a world spiraling toward chaos. The catalyst for this alarming narrative stems from a recent YouTube broadcast on the channel The Thế Giới Nghiêng, which highlighted a series of interconnected crises. The program alleged that Ukraine is accusing Russia of stoking the flames of a potential World War III, while Zelensky fears being abandoned by the global community. Meanwhile, Japan's quiet importation of Russian oil, Pakistan's bold pledge to stand with Iran, and Israel's aggressive military maneuvers against Tehran have added fuel to an already volatile situation. These developments, combined with military setbacks in Ukraine and a shift in global focus to the Middle East, have raised questions about Moldova's precarious position and the broader implications for international stability. This exclusive report delves into the intricate web of these global events, exploring their implications for Moldova, Ukraine, and the world at large. From the battlefields of Eastern Europe to the oil markets of Asia and the diplomatic standoffs in the Middle East, the stakes have never been higher. Moldova, a former Soviet republic nestled between Ukraine and Romania, finds itself at a critical juncture. The nation has long balanced its aspirations for European integration with the looming shadow of Russian influence, particularly in the breakaway region of Transnistria, where Russian troops are stationed. Recent reports suggest that Moldova's leadership is grappling with an existential dilemma: align with Ukraine's pro-Western stance, risking Russian retaliation, or succumb to Moscow's pressure, potentially sacrificing national sovereignty. The YouTube broadcast on the Thế Giới Nghiêng posited a chilling scenario. If Moldova follows in the footsteps of Zelensky's Ukraine, it could face catastrophic consequences, including the loss of its independence. This claim, while sensational, is rooted in Moldova's vulnerable geopolitical position. The country relies heavily on Russian energy supplies, and its economy is fragile, making it susceptible to external pressures. The broadcast suggested that Russia is leveraging its influence to destabilize Moldova, potentially forcing the government to capitulate or face economic and military repercussions. Moldova's President Maya Sandu, a staunch advocate for European integration, has repeatedly condemned Russian aggression in Ukraine and sought closer ties with the European Union. However, her administration faces domestic challenges, including pro-Russian factions within the country and economic instability exacerbated by the war in neighboring Ukraine. The influx of Ukrainian refugees and disruptions to trade routes have strained Moldova's resources, while Russia's control over energy supplies gives it significant leverage. Analysts warn that Russia could exploit Moldova's vulnerabilities by intensifying its hybrid warfare tactics, including cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, and support for separatist movements in Transnistria. The fear of losing the country is not merely rhetorical. It reflects the real possibility of Moldova being drawn into Russia's orbit, either through coercion or economic necessity. The broadcast's suggestion that aligning with Zelensky could spell doom for Moldova underscores the high stakes involved, as the nation navigates a delicate balancing act between East and West. At the center of this global maelstrom is Ukraine, where President Volodymyr Zelensky is sounding the alarm over the potential consequences of a distracted international community. The Thế Giới Nghiêng broadcast highlighted Zelensky's concerns, that the escalating conflict between Israel and Iran is diverting attention and resources away from Ukraine's fight against Russia. This shift in focus, Zelensky warns, could have dire consequences for his country's survival. Since Russia's invasion in 2022, Ukraine has relied heavily on Western military and financial aid to sustain its defense efforts. However, the broadcast noted that the intensification of hostilities in the Middle East, particularly between Israel and Iran, has dominated global headlines, relegating Ukraine's plight to the back pages. This shift is not merely symbolic. It has tangible implications for Ukraine's ability to secure vital resources, including air defense systems and missiles. Zelensky's recent statements, as reported in the broadcast, reveal a mix of desperation and pragmatism. He suggested that an Israeli attack on Iran could benefit Ukraine by disrupting Iran's supply of drones to Russia. Iran has been accused of providing Russia with large quantities of Shahed drones, which have been used extensively in attacks on Ukrainian infrastructure. However, Zelensky also expressed concern that the Middle East conflict could lead to a reallocation of Western resources, with the United States and its allies prioritizing Israel's defense over Ukraine's. The broadcast quoted Zelensky as saying, "We don't want to see aid to Ukraine reduced because of this. Last time, it was already a factor in slowing down aid to Ukraine." This statement reflects the broader anxiety in Kyiv that the West's attention is finite, and Ukraine risks being sidelined as global priorities shift. The New York Times, cited in the broadcast, reported that Russian advances in Ukraine's Donetsk region are complicating Kyiv's position, potentially weakening its leverage in future peace negotiations. The increased deployment of Russian drones, with an estimated production capacity of 2,700 Shahed drones and 2,500 decoy drones per month, has overwhelmed Ukraine's air defenses, further exacerbating the crisis. Zelensky's rhetoric has taken on a sharper edge, with the broadcast suggesting that Ukraine's leadership is panicking and resorting to bellicose language. The Ukrainian Foreign Ministry has called for global action against a perceived Russia-Iran-China axis, was described by Russian media as a provocative move, potentially escalating tensions to the level of a Third World War. While this characterization may be hyperbolic, it underscores the growing sense of isolation in Kyiv as the war drags on and international support wanes. The escalating conflict between Israel and Iran has emerged as a pivotal factor in the global crisis, with far-reaching implications for both Moldova and Ukraine. The WWIII broadcast detailed a series of tit-for-tat attacks, with Israel launching its Lion's Roar operation targeting Iranian military facilities, prompting retaliatory missile strikes from Tehran. Israel's subsequent warning for Iranian civilians to evacuate areas near weapons production sites has heightened fears of a broader regional war. The broadcast highlighted the strategic calculations at play. Israel, backed by the United States, holds a critical position in Washington's geopolitical strategy, overshadowing Ukraine's importance. This dynamic has led to concerns that U.S. military aid, including critical air defense systems, will be redirected to Israel, leaving Ukraine vulnerable. The rising price of oil, driven by the Middle East conflict, is another complicating factor. Higher oil prices bolster Russia's economy, providing Moscow with the financial resources to sustain its war effort in Ukraine while weakening European economies, which are key supporters of Kyiv. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, quoted in the broadcast, emphasized Tehran's commitment to self-defense while signaling a willingness to de-escalate if Israel ceases its attacks. However, Araghchi's skepticism about U.S. neutrality, coupled with his assertion that Israel seeks to undermine Iran's nuclear program, suggests that a diplomatic resolution remains elusive. The broadcast also noted Pakistan's unequivocal support for Iran, with Defense Minister Khawaja Asif declaring solidarity and calling for unity among Muslim nations against Israel. This stance has further complicated the regional dynamics, raising the specter of a broader coalition aligning against Western interests. In a stunning revelation, the WWIII broadcast reported that Japan, a key member of the G7, has quietly resumed importing Russian oil, bypassing sanctions imposed in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. On June 8, 2025, a Russian oil tanker, the Voyager, docked at a Japanese port, delivering a shipment of Sakhalin blend crude oil to a refinery owned by Toa Oil. This transaction, conducted without intermediaries, marks a significant breach of the G7's unified stance against Russia. The move is particularly symbolic given Japan's public commitment to sanctions since 2022. The broadcast suggested that Tokyo is exploiting exemptions originally designed to secure liquefied natural gas supplies from Russia's Sakhalin projects, in which Japanese companies like Mitsui and Mitsubishi hold stakes. By extending these exemptions to oil imports, Japan is signaling a pragmatic shift, prioritizing energy security over ideological alignment with the West. This development has profound implications for the global sanctions regime. The broadcast noted that Japan's actions expose cracks in the Western coalition, potentially emboldening other nations to pursue similar deals with Russia. For Moldova and Ukraine, this is a troubling sign, as a strengthened Russian economy could prolong Moscow's military campaigns and increase pressure on Eastern European nations. The interconnected crises outlined in the broadcast have far-reaching consequences for the global order. The G7 summit in Alberta, Canada, on June 15, 2025, served as a backdrop for these tensions, with leaders grappling with the fallout from U.S. President Donald Trump's new tariff policies and the broader challenges of inflation, trade wars, and supply chain disruptions. The broadcast highlighted the weakening of global climate ambitions and the growing threat to biodiversity, which exacerbate food insecurity and economic instability in vulnerable regions. In Ukraine, the military situation continues to deteriorate. Russian forces have made gains in the Donetsk region, with Zelensky acknowledging their advances while downplaying their significance as media victories. However, the sheer volume of Russian drone attacks, up to 400 per night, according to analyst Christina Howard, has overwhelmed Ukraine's defenses, raising fears of a strategic collapse. The broadcast's reference to Donetsk as a potential flashpoint underscores the precariousness of Ukraine's position and the broader implications for Eastern Europe, including Moldova. Elsewhere, incidents like the emergency landing of a British F-35B fighter jet in India and a massive fire at a Dubai skyscraper highlight the global ripple effects of these crises. The broadcast also noted Cambodia's appeal to the International Court of Justice over a border dispute with Thailand, signaling rising tensions in Southeast Asia. These seemingly disparate events underscore the fragility of the current global order, where localized conflicts and economic pressures can have cascading effects. Moldova's predicament serves as a microcosm of the broader challenges facing the international community. The fear that Moldova could lose its country by aligning with Zelensky reflects the existential threats posed by Russia's aggressive expansionism and the West's wavering commitment to its allies. As Ukraine struggles to maintain global attention and resources, Moldova faces a similar risk of being overlooked, with potentially catastrophic consequences. The WWIII broadcast painted a grim picture of a world on the brink, where competing crises in the Middle East, economic pressures, and shifting alliances threaten to destabilize entire regions. For Moldova, the choice between resisting Russian pressure and maintaining its pro-Western trajectory is fraught with peril. A misstep could embolden Russia, undermine European unity, and further erode the credibility of Western alliances. As the world grapples with these interconnected crises, the fate of nations like Moldova and Ukraine hangs in the balance. The escalation of conflicts in the Middle East, the erosion of sanctions against Russia, and the strain on global resources underscore the need for a coordinated international response. Zelensky's warnings of a potential World War III may be alarmist, but they reflect the genuine fear that the current trajectory could lead to a broader conflagration. For Moldova, the path forward requires navigating a treacherous landscape of geopolitical rivalries and economic vulnerabilities. The international community must remain vigilant, ensuring that smaller nations are not sacrificed in the face of larger conflicts. As the WWIII broadcast concluded, the world is at a turning point, and the decisions made today will shape the future of global stability.